Yep.
Our country is built, to your exact point, right? Our country is built on the idea of representative democracy, like democratic principles, which means you're supposed to focus on being a podcaster. That's what you're supposed to focus on. You're supposed to focus on good content, creative conversations, pushing the envelope, getting it published in high quality, video and high quality audio. That's what you're supposed to do. And then periodically, you're supposed to vote on somebody to represent your constituency interests at a higher level of politics. You're not supposed to meddle in politics. You're supposed to be responsible and ethical in the way that you choose a representative who will represent you for the next 2 years in Congress and the person who will represent you for the next 6 years in the Senate. And you're supposed to do that for your state and for your county and for your federal government, right? For your national level. That's what you're supposed to do along with being a podcaster. We gave up our civic duty to find the right representatives from the 70s on. We started not doing our civic duty to understand who we were voting for. We started voting for whoever was advertised to us. We started voting for whoever was espousing the 2 or 3 priorities that we cared most about. Right? And then as older people voted more and younger people voted less, then you started having this dichotomy of the only policies that people were really paying attention to or talking about or trying to move the needle on were the 2 or 3 policies that were most impactful to the older generations. That's why you always see healthcare as a debated topic. That's why you always see Medicare and Medicaid as a debated topic. That's why you always see, immigration as a debated topic, because that's what older generations care about. Younger generations care about something completely different. So as like generation after generation goes by, you have these entrenched politicians who do not represent the constituencies that they're supposed to be representing, which results in the constituency members like you and me thinking and talking more about politics when we don't have any power over politics except to vote for who could change the future of politics. So to your point, how do we live here? Like, how do we not go to the place where we disband CIA, but also not go to the place where CIA has no oversight at all?
Yeah.
Right? How do we stay in the middle? We have to lean into the democratic process that we built here in our country and make sure that we participate in local elections, participate in senatorial, gubernatorial, and congressional races, get people who represent our interests into office, because once those people are in office, they become the oversight committee for CIA. They are dedicated to actually representing the constituency that voted them into office, because they don't care about making the party happy. They care about making their constituency happy, because they know that their head is on the chopping block as soon as 2 years or 6 years is up. Right?
I think this is great. I think you're missing 2 words though, and the 2 words you like: term limits. You for what you're saying to work, you have to put that into place in both the House and the Senate in some fashion, because you will always create too much of a high volume incentive for someone to win on a Tuesday in November and not do the right thing.
As long as you have professional politicians, you'll never have term limits.
Yeah.
Because a professional politician can't put a term limit in place because it terminates their career. So how are we going to get there? You and I have to vote fucking people into office who will get there and vote for term limits. Right? That's, as much as people want to hate Donald Trump is the closest thing to how our presidential policy or process was supposed to work that since like the forefathers themselves.
What? Why?
Because he's not a professional politician. He is a business person who is stepping out of business to sacrifice 4 years of his life in office, because or 8 years of his life in office, and then he's supposed to leave and go back to contributing to business. That's how our country was built. That's what the forefathers wanted. They wanted successful business people, successful entrepreneurs, successful executives, successful doctors and attorneys and everything else. They wanted them to be successful in their career, run for office, win the election based on the people, represent the people's needs for a term limit, and then step out of office and go right back into their job, right? Yeah. What did George Washington do?
Yes, exactly.
That's how it was supposed to work. We fucked that system up, dude, and we became driven by professional politics. We became expert marketers and calling ourselves campaigners instead. So we, the American people, have to take some freaking ownership of how fucked up our government is. Because when we don't pay attention, when we don't vote, when we don't get off our ass to go to every electoral, registration or every poll, we're just entrenching the current process more and more.
How often do you and your CIA colleagues, like during your career, how often when you're in the middle of missions or whatever, wherever the fuck, would you guys talk politics?